Alrighty, we are back again with our Tuesday draw segment. We're coming back in with a deuce to seven triple draw. Deuce to seven triple draw is always played limit as far as I'm aware. So this is of course another example where it's limit. This is not a free roll. This is a $2.20 buy-in. It's probably a little bit higher than I'm really comfortable playing in Deuce to 7. Deuce to 7 is not a game that I play a huge amount, but I mean 220 is not a huge buy-in for my bankroll, so I'm not that thrilled. I play 220 Hold'em all the time, so from that perspective, it's not certainly not an issue. But it's just a bigger Deuce to 7 game that I would typically buy into. But what the heck? This whole point of anything but Hold'em is to play some games that we don't normally play. We are instantly at the final table. I doubt that's going to last. I mean, it's there's at the moment we have 5 people registered in this, but there's 9 minutes of late reg, so we'll probably get enough for a second table. Deuce to 7, even triple draw, I think we're getting rid of this hand. I don't think... Oh, well, no, we're going to check, obviously. So, we'll draw 4 to the nuts. How does that sound? Let's draw 4 to the nuts. Since we got triple draw, we got other things to play later on. So we went 7-3. We really don't need to continue, I don't think, in this hand. Obviously the bets aren't that big and we're not throwing that much out, but everything we save is stuff we can use later on down the road, and this is really not developing into that great of a hand. One of the things to remember with triple draw versus single draw is that in single draw you can hold on 9s and 8s and feel fairly comfortable where you're at. You're going to get drawn out on you're going to get drawn out on very often when you're playing triple draw. So you want to make sure that your hands are stronger when you're playing triple draw, and you're padding, just because you know that it's much easier to get drawn out on. This is actually a pretty good hand. I think I'm gonna complete and go through and draw 1 to the 87. We pair a 5, which is obviously not a good thing in Deuce to 7. You want to avoid pairing cards. So we're going to check this. We'll probably check call. We've just had a 6th person join into the tournament, so I've got a full final table at this point. Obviously, for the record, in this situation, you would never discard your 5 of hearts. You would always discard your 5 of diamonds, because you never want to draw a diamond back, right? Now, in this case, it wouldn't have mattered, but if I bring the 3 of diamonds out and I've thrown that, I'm in horrible shape there, right? I'm liking this hand quite a bit. We're against people that are drawing way more than us, so we're going to bet this, and we're going to pat for our final draw. We're going to pat our 87, and we're going to pat it fairly confidently, thinking that we're going to win the hand with betting, and possibly, with people now, everybody's 2 cards or 1 card. I'm pretty confident that I'm winning the hand. It's really only Nutty. Yeah, that one. That's I mean, that's unfortunate, but it's one of those situations that happens. 87-5-4-3 for me versus 87-5-3-2 for Pitt. So it's just one of those unfortunate situations that's going to occur. It looks like my Twitter is not doing what my... Let me play around with my settings just a little bit. Gonna draw a 3 to my 83 here. See what develops. A fairly nice hand develops. I think we might discard our 9. We're up against 3s and 2s for draws, so I mean I think we're... It's so hard to judge your strength in triple draw when you pat down with something like a 98, like we saw before. It can be, you can get drawn out on. That was a nice discard and a nice draw. I think we're definitely calling here. I think we've got a strong hand. But I think we just call. I don't really think that there's much argument for raising there. So Acid Tree is patting. I think I'm going to pat as well. I'm probably pat calling when we get around to the next deal. It looks like everybody's probably pat calling at this point. My 876 could be good. I don't necessarily have to be good here at all. Yeah, there we go. 86 versus my 87. So these ones have been a nice example of the relative strength of triple draw hands versus single draw hands. I mean, you're seeing me getting drawn out on much weaker hands than I have in the single draw game before. Right, so we're getting a flurry of people running to the cage to buy into this tournament. We got a total of 13, it looks like, in the bought in now. So we're up to 3 tables. There are currently two places being paid with $26 in the prize pool. So we're on a break. I'm going to be back after the break. So I will talk to you soon. We are back, and I was very rude by not checking my sit out next hand before I left when I thought I might not be back in time, but I am now back. So, good to see everybody. Good to have everybody around. Say hello in chat. As you might notice, the game environment is slightly different today. I've added a bit of context around everything. Trying to do what I can to, sort of improve the experience. I've been trying to decide whether having a webcam image of my face as I sit here and do this is any value, and I really don't think it is. This picture of me here while I was playing a live tournament in the UK in Nottingham at a place called Dust to Dawn. Awesome poker room if you're ever in the UK, or if you're from the UK, go hang out in Dust to Dawn because it's a cool place. Lots of fun. They do good tournaments. They have good cash games. Just a really good poker environment to be around. So I do it. This was a live tournament sponsored by Black Belt Poker, the now defunct poker site formerly run by Neil Channing, player from the UK. It was a lot of fun. It was a good time. I happened to be there for work at the same time that the tournament was running, so I figured I'd go and buy in. Ended up having a beer and dinner with Neil Channing and chatting with him. It was a pretty good time. I busted out before the money, so I didn't actually win anything, but yeah, I mean, it was a good time, and this picture ended up coming out of it, and it's one of the better pictures of me playing poker, so I figured I'd throw it up here on the site, and you guys have a good idea. For the record, I think it's fairly clear, but I'm the bald-headed guy looking at his chips. I'm not the guy with the buds in his ears. So there you go. I'm not the guy on the far right-hand side with the buds in his ears. Right, so we are doing the $2.20 fixed limit triple draw deuce to 7. I am chipped down a little bit at this point. This is not a game that I regularly play, so I could very well get preyed upon by regs in the game, and I think I have to a certain extent with some of my calling through with the 9s and the 8s on this. We're obviously going to fold this, I think, especially with our current history of getting our asses handed to us. So you may also notice that I've added a window for the chat. What that actually should allow is that when you say hi in chat, now as you're watching the screen, you'll actually be able to see with the 3-minute delay how long it takes for me to actually see it, because that way it pops up there. You know that's the first time that I will ever have a chance to have responded to your chat. But please feel free to interact as much as you can. I'm going to try to keep up the interaction level of this as much as I can as we go on, and try to generate as much audience as we can. Right, so suited cards are bad in deuce to 7. We can draw. We're going to draw 2 to our 5, 6, 7. Well, at least we don't have a flush anymore, but we do still have a king high, which is not a very good hand in we're going to fold that, I think. Watching the heads up WSOP main event final table as well. Nice artistic chip stacking there by Jakobsen. I love the little super tower there in the middle of his giant fortress base. Not entirely sure whether that tower is architecturally sound at this point or not, but there's a fair number of chips there. Of course, he's got 175 million chips to Stevenson's 25 million chips. So yeah, I mean, you know, he's got a bit of a chip lead, I guess you would have to say. Martin Jakobsen does. So he's probably the slight favorite for this heads up battle. But hey, it's heads up. You never know. I mean, literally, Stevenson is 2 double ups away from being even. So it's that close, really, and that's the way heads up poker goes. So it's a lot of fun to watch. Hopefully you have got a stream or a TV channel or something to be able to watch this on, because it's actually been pretty good. And Martin Jakobsen is quite a solid one of the greats, I think, of the modern game. So it's worth having a look at, I think. We have ended up here with a pretty decent drawing hand, so I think we're gonna throw some money in this pot, because, you know, really we're looking for a 5 or a 3 to get us in on a 7, and anything like an 8 is still going to give us a pretty happy time. So we're going to discard one of our 6s, and the 5 coming back is just sort of our gin card at this point. We're going to throw money in the pot. We're gonna call or raise as much as we can, I think, with this, and we're going to check, or we're going to pat on our last draw. And if this isn't enough to win, you know, it's obviously not the nuts. It's not even close to the nuts, being a 765, but we can't draw to it, and we've got to value it for whatever we can at this point. So we're throwing chips into the pot as much as we can. We're hoping that somebody doesn't believe us and wants to. Yeah, okay. Well, at least he called. At least we got a call. Well, looks like the main event might be over, folks. My stream is showing that on the flop, Martin Jakobsen has just flopped a set of 10s to Stevenson's ace-9 with Stevenson all in. He is down to 0.4%, Stevenson, that is, equity on the flop, to 99.6% equity for Jakobsen. That's pretty darn close to drawing dead, folks. So we'll see what happens, but we are down. I think he's dead now. And Martin Jakobsen is the new 2014 main event champion, folks. I'm pretty sure that I threw this ace like 4 times already, but we'll go from there. Jack, not a great card to draw into. I am gonna call this big bet, though, probably because I'm bad at limit triple draw, and we're gonna get rid of standing pat. Means that we've probably got a pretty solid hand up there. Yeah, I don't actually think we're calling here at all with the Queen 7. I don't know what I'm calling there, but Queen 7's definitely not one of the ones I'm calling. So Martin Jakobsen is now the 2014 WSOP main event champion. Congratulations to Jakobsen. That's awesome. It was a good battle by Stevenson. Um, I hate to be the one to bring it up, but how the hell does it feel to wake up being Mark Newhouse this morning, eh? 2 years in a row, you make the final table of the main event, and 2 years in a row, you're ninth. That's gotta suck. That's really gotta suck. I'm guessing he budgeted his money better this year than he might have last year, knowing that coming back ninth is the possibility. But that's just a brutal situation with Newhouse. That said, everything else was good. It was actually great to see Billy Pappas run through to fifth place. That was really cool, and he played really well. I mean, it was really, he was. There was a couple of spots early on, I thought, where he was very nervous, and he had a few tells that he gave away, and Potts didn't go that well for him because of it, because other people picked up on that. But as the day moved on yesterday, he really stepped up, and he was doing really well, and the fifth place was a real testament to that. So yeah, it was all in all, I think it was a fun. All in all, I think it was a fun final table, and we now have a 2014 main event champion finally. Alrighty, well, it's good to be hanging out again with you here. We're playing some limit deuce to seven triple draw. I'm gonna check through on this and draw 2 to a 96 and see where we end up on that. I think we're gonna check, and if it checks through, we're gonna draw 2 to the 86, and we're probably gonna call a single bet. As long as nobody's raising, we're probably calling here and drawing to our 86 and seeing where we go. I think with this, we're probably bailing. I think we're probably bailing to a bet. So a 10-8 is not the strongest of hands, as we've seen. But I'm obviously not, open folding. The question is, am I calling a 10-8? I think I probably am. And we take it down because he was betting with a pair of fives under the idea that he couldn't win if he didn't bet. Which is not a bad reason to bet, actually. It's one of the better reasons to bet, frankly. We are going to draw 2 to the nuts. We didn't hit the nuts, but we can now draw 1 to the nuts. It doesn't really matter which 7 we throw here, but aesthetically speaking, I like to throw the club for some reason here. It doesn't actually matter because 3 clubs is no different than 4 clubs, but or vice, whatever. But just aesthetically speaking, I like to get rid of the club there and get as rainbow as possible on the board. Got 1 draw remaining, so of course we're gonna try once more to draw to the nuts. 3, of course, for the nuts. A 6 works for us as well. An 8 probably doesn't make us too unhappy either, frankly. So those are basically the cards we're trying to draw with when we throw this 2 away. Ace in the game of deuce 7, not a card you're looking for. So this is probably not a hand that's going to go very well, especially not when we've got JR padding behind us. So I think we just check folding at this point. Yeah, with people betting and raising, we're just folding at that point. There's no reason for us to continue betting for any reason. Alrighty, we got a few people hanging out in the chat or in the stream. It looks like. Say hi in chat. Let me know who you are, where you're from, what brought you by my stream. As a reminder of what we're doing here, we are playing a deuce to 7 limit triple draw. We were playing no limit single draw a little while ago, but I busted out with that fairly quickly. No limit kind of runs that way, so, I suppose. I do have more experience playing deuce to 7 triple draw, but I would never characterize myself as an expert in any sense at deuce to 7. So I'm just a guy here playing the games and enjoying the various games. This is a $2.20 buy-in, which is probably a bigger deuce to 7 game that I would normally play, but it's certainly not any bigger than the normal HoldEm games I play. So I'm not playing out of my bankroll or anything like that. Just playing a larger deuce to 7 games than I would normally play. We are on a 3-minute delay for the record, so if you do say anything in chat, it'll take a couple of minutes for me to see it, most likely, or at least if you're responding to things that I'm saying and that are happening on the table. So just bear that in mind. That's one of the reasons why I've got the chat window up on the stream as well, so you'll actually be able to see when your message comes in time-wise. We got a Queen Jack 9-8-7. This is really not the sort of hand I think that we really want to be playing in a deuce to 7 environment, so I think we're just going to get rid of it under the gun there. What's our situation looking like in the... we had 16 people who first entered. There's 14 left now. Registration's closed, for the record, quite a while ago. I'm sitting 9th out of 14. There's three people pay. Third place is $6.40, which is pretty darn good payback on a $2.20 buy-in. That's the min cash. Second place is $9.60, and first place is a cool $16. So right now the top chip stack is Ride My Donkey, a Canadian with 38.90. Bottom chip stack is Acidery, a German fellow with 120 chips. I think we're definitely gonna check and draw 2 to our 76 here. Not two very good ones to our 76, so we're just going to keep check, most likely check. What did Leprechaun discard? I think we're going to check call. When he's drawn 3 cards, we can't really do much but check call. That gives us a 97 with a deuce low. I think we're probably check calling this, and he drew 1 the last time. So I think we're going to pat this. And we're going to check call. And he sucked out on the final draw. I shouldn't say he sucked out. I mean, he went for the draw and went. If we're more aggressive there, we might actually get him off the hand earlier. But I've actually been watching him play, and I don't think we're getting him off the hand any earlier. As I've said, I certainly make no claim to being an expert at deuce to 7. Well, I don't make any claim to being an expert at any of the games that I'm going to play here. Just a guy who enjoys playing poker. But there are certain games that I think I'm a little bit more skilled at. Deuce 7's not one of those games. Deuce 7's one I just play for fun, and it's enjoyable. Of the various Deuce 7 variants, the limit triple draw variant is probably the one that I'm most familiar with, so that's a bonus for this one. But otherwise, yeah, I'm not. I don't normally play. Would normally sit down and play triple draw. Pretty much the only time that I would play Deuce to 7 is in rotation during an 8 game. That's really about the only time that I'm playing Deuce to 7. So, good to see you. Glad to have a few people hanging out in the stream today. As you can see over there, my name is Lyle Bateman. This is Anything But HoldEm. Tonight we are playing Deuce to 7 limit triple draw. It is a $2.20 tournament with 3 places paid out. We're not doing so hot right now. We're at chip down, but I'm not too worried about it. It's only 30-60 blind levels. We got lots of time. We're still sitting on 18 big blinds. It's a limit game. We're quite happy. We don't have anything to worry about at this point. Our structure runs every 12 minutes. It changes, so it's a pretty slow structure for the online game. So that makes even more. Lomix TV, how you doing, man? Good to see you. Good to see you. Glad to have you around. Where are you from? If you're interested in questions, or if you happen to know anything about Deuce 7 and want to give me advice, I'm certainly welcome, or I'm certainly happy to. Certainly happy to have you chat with me about it and tell me what you think. I do think this is a hand I'm going to be calling with and throwing out my. It's almost defensive. One of the problems with playing Deuce to 7 is it's almost defensive when you get into a situation like this and you have to throw out a pair of aces. It just doesn't feel right as a poker player to have to do that. But yes, sometimes we actually do have to do that. Alrighty, so let's discard a couple of cards. That was actually a pretty darn good discard that we did there. And I think we're going to be pretty happy and go with this. It's obviously not the nuts. It's the nuts would be a 75. 4-3 deuce, and there's a couple of 7s that beat us at this point, but I think we're pretty happy to throw as many chips into the pot as we want and pat this down, just because, you know, yeah, if the 76s get through to us, then we're just gonna be done with our game. I don't think it's ever gonna be in your best interest in this situation. Now. Please, if you guys happen to, like I say, be Deuce 7 players and I'm wrong about this, tell me. But I don't think at this point drawing to the 8 is ever going to be a profitable move. I just don't see that. I just don't see that being profitable. So tell me different if that's the case. But I think I pretty much have to pat through on this. And like I say, this is my last chance. But I mean, I think really I'd basically be throwing an 8 to try to draw a 7. So I really think that's just a bad decision if I was to make it. Now the question is, do we bet? Do we value bet the river? Do we? I definitely don't think we're bluffing if we bet here. And I think that we probably with an 85 have to value bet, despite the fact that we've been getting our ass handed to us on these. In fact, maybe because we've been getting our ass handed to us, this is a pretty strong hand, and we're hoping that people have seen us betting with slightly weaker holdings and will call us weaker than they might otherwise, like I think probably Pit 30 did there. We are in episode 4 now of Anything But Hold'em, sort of. The truth is that episode 4 is kind of episode 6, because there's 2 lost episodes that got lost in the ether when I didn't have a certain check button checked on my Twitch settings. And coincidentally, when I also didn't have a certain check button checked on my broadcast software, so it was getting archived in neither place, which was rather unfortunate. So those have been lost, but nonetheless, we are on episode 4 at the moment. It's kind of episode 4B since I played a short No Limit single draw a while back and busted out of that, and then quit and came back 10 minutes later on this Deuce 7 single draw. But I think we're going to nonetheless still call it. Wow, we are going to draw 4 to our 6. I think is really about all we can do. That's a pretty darn good draw when you're drawing 4 to a 6. I think we are going to bet. And we're going to keep betting, I think, given the way that Leprechaun has been demonstrating his play in the past. The Jack kind of bites, I must admit. Yeah, no, that was a nice hit by him. Well, welcome from Latvia. Good to have you. Good to have you here. It is, if you're watching some streams while you have your breakfast, I am streaming to you at 11:30 p.m. So just before midnight. So it's a midnight snack for me. Breakfast for you is a midnight snack for me, I guess. So there you go. It's good to have you around, Lomix. Hit the follow button, and you'll get notified when I come on stream. The kind of point of all this, what I'm trying to do here, is show some of the games that don't normally get played and don't normally get shown on streams. There's lots of people streaming Hold'em. There's lots of people streaming PLO, Pot Limit Omaha. There isn't a whole lot of people streaming Deuce to 7 Limit Triple Draw. Maybe there's a reason for that. Maybe it's because no one wants to watch. I'm not sure that's true. I think that actually the other games are very interesting and quite fun. So I'm gonna stream some while I play. I don't claim to be any expert at any of these games. I'm just a recreational poker player who likes to play these games. And while I'm playing them, I'm gonna let you guys watch me play them. I'm going to try to be honest about the games that I think I'm okay at, and I'm going to try to be honest about the games that I think I suck at. For the record, Deuce 7 is one of the ones that I kind of suck at, so, you know, I really, any sort of criticism that might go on of my play here is probably perfectly valid, because I probably suck at the game. I'm fully happy to admit that. But that said, I love playing all the different variants, and if either I can learn from your advice, or some newcomers to various games can learn from me about how to play the new games, be a little less intimidated when they sit down at one on Stars or whatever, then, you know, it'll be a lot of fun, and we can enjoy our we can enjoy our time together. So there's 12 people left in the tournament at this point. We had 16 people total enter. We're sitting 9th with 1,650 chips, which isn't a terrible spot to be in. You know, I think we're probably doing reasonably well with this. There's no reason to panic, especially in a limit game. It obviously takes a lot more to get yourself all in. we've got a few people that are below us. We're not really in any danger of busting out at any specific time right now. And I don't really see any reason to go crazy with anything. That said, I think we're probably going to be calling this and drawing two to our 65, because that's a pretty strong hand, and there's a fair number of cards that we can draw into it that we like. Obviously, a 4 is problematic, although we don't hate it. But a 4 is definitely problematic because it takes the deuce and the 7 out of play for us. But a deuce is a wicked card for us to hit. Obviously the deuce 7 is probably our ideal gin card at this point. But if we can get a deuce, a 7, even an 8, I think I'm relatively happy with. I'm preferring that we don't hit a 4. Preferring that we don't a pair of 5 as well. That's not the friendliest thing in the world. What did Pitt do after he raised before the first draw? Discarded 1. I think we're going to call through at least for one more draw. We're still obviously drawing 2 to our 65, but everybody else is also still drawing, so I don't really think that's a huge issue. Now we've drawn the 4, which means we've got a relatively good low draw in theory, or you would think we would. But the truth is, the deuce and the 7 don't give us a draw. They give us straights, which means we're done. So we're drawing to an 86 is basically our best case scenario at this point. So I think we've got to get rid of the hand. I think our best case draw there is drawing to an 86, and that's never really going to be a super strong hand to live on when you're playing triple draw. And counting on the best draw hitting is probably not the best place to go in. Now, if we had hit the 8, we would have won. If we'd hit a 9, we probably would have won there by the look at what Papa did. Being results oriented. But I don't think that it's worth putting our money in at that point with the way that when that 4 comes in, you've just basically burned the deuce and the 7 from useful cards for you, and that's just too much of a disadvantage. Still 12 people left in this one. We are looking for top 3 to pay out. We are still sitting 9th according to the tournament lobby. I think we're going to draw 2 to our 86 here and see what happens. I think we'll call through on 1 and toss the ace and the 6 out, and we're obviously drawn to an 86. We can see what happens from there. Those were not quite what I would call gin cards for us, but pretty darn close to the gin cards for us. Obviously, I think the deuce 4 in this situation would have been our gin card. That would have given us an 86 4-3 deuce. As is now, we've got an 876 43. But I think we have to go with that. Now, we're in kind of dangerous position here because we're basically looking at this point to be padding with an 87 for 2 draws. And that's not the best situation to be in a triple draw game because, as we've seen, people can draw out to some pretty absurd hands in triple draw, and it happens fairly regularly. So I think I need to keep putting money in the pot, but I also need to be somewhat cautious in the case of like Leprechaun doing that, because I think that you know, Leprechaun is probably going to pat this hand down. Yeah, which means that I'm going to check call and probably potentially lose to an 86. Yeah, I like the variance as well. To an 85. I was pretty close. I said we were going to lose to an 86. We lost to an 85, so I was pretty close. Yeah, Lom. I like the Lomax. I like the various variants as well. I mean, I play a lot of HoldEm too, but I just really like the other variants, and you never see, you know, you never see the other variants on streams or on TV. And if you want to see, you know, if you don't know where to find HoldEm streams, I can probably list off 100 for you to go, and you know, that I would recommend to go and have a look, with Jason Somerville, of course, being right at the top of the list. But I want to show something different, so yeah, I'm gonna play the I'm gonna show the mixed games, and we're gonna do anything but HoldEm, which of course we've already broken that rule and had one HoldEm tournament on here, so we are gonna occasionally have HoldEm here on anything but HoldEm, but it's mostly gonna be stuff like this, deuce to sevens. Gonna play some Badoogie, gonna play some Raz and some stud high-low. We're just gonna have some fun. We're gonna play, we're gonna see what happens. So Raylene is padding a third draw, but I'm still basically drawing to the nuts. A 7 gives me the nuts, and any, you know, I basically got, you know, a queen 5. I can't really be thrilled with a queen 5 at this point. I obviously wanted to get like a 7 or an 8, but the question is, do I want to call Raylene's pats? How far back did Raylene pat? Raylene patted, discarded 1 on second draw and patted third draw, which tells me that she's probably pretty strong. So I think I'm bailing on this one. I don't think that the queen is really ever going to win there. Queen certainly, the queen 5 is certainly not going to beat the 7-6 there. The 76 is going to win all the time. I think this is a hand that I probably need to get rid of, especially when we've got a raised pot. Although it's pit going all in with a small stack, but still, I think I'm basically drawing 3 to a 76, and that just doesn't seem like I'm getting really good price for that, frankly. Again, I should mention that I'm not playing these games because I claim to be an expert at any of these poker variants. I'm playing these games because I like playing them, and I'm a recreational poker player that I don't mind having people watch me play, and I want to share some of the other games with other people who may not see them played, may not know how they're played, may not have ever seen them before. And we can have some fun with all the different kinds of poker. This Leprechaun seems to be pretty aggressive, but also in a way that they've pretty much always had the goods when they've gotten there. Now he likes to draw out to hands, but he seems to be drawing out to hands pretty consistently this evening. So I think I was just going to get out of that, even though I wasted chips putting them in. We are down to 11th of 11. Good to see some people hanging out with me tonight. Good to see you. We've got Lomix chatting in the chat box. Everybody else, say hi if you feel like it. Feel free to say hi in the chat box. Follow me if you want to get updates on the next time we're going to go online. I'm not really sure what we're going to play next. I want to play some Badoogie. I haven't had any Badoogie on the stream yet, and I really want to get some Badoogie going here. And yeah, when you follow me, you'll get email updates. There's a Twitter link on my profile page here that will get you to my Twitter page, and you get Twitter updates as well whenever I go online. So yeah, if you're looking for streams to watch next games and off Hold'em variants of poker, this is where it's going to be. This is where we're going to try to do that, folks. Tonight is a $2.20 triple draw deuce to 7. It's fixed limit. Pretty much all the triple draw deuce to 7 is fixed limit variant. If it's no limit, it is single draw. Is the way that it works with deuce to 7. I'm a little bit more familiar with the limit triple draw variety, just because I play it a lot more in the 8 games that I love so much. I would say that I have almost never played no limit single draw deuce to 7. Very rarely, anyways. But either way, I'm not a deuce to 7 expert. It's not one of the games that I play a ton of that I think I've got any skills at. It's fun to play though, and I don't plan to limit the games on this stream to the ones that I think I'm good at. I plan to play everything, just so that every week we can all have a chance to see all the games and play all the games. And I don't think that there's anything that I'm going to play on here that I will be playing on here for the first time. But there's certainly going to be games like a Kercheval high-low, or a 5-card Omaha, or something along those lines that that might be the 3rd or the 4th time I've ever played one of these when it comes on here. So we'll see how those go when they come, but I'm going to be very honest about the ones that I'm happy with, and games that I just don't know anything about. I don't really know anything about deuce to 7, but I'm thinking that given my chip stack, given the fact that it's full to me in the small blind, I pretty much have to throw chips into the pot as much as I can and draw 2 to my 96 and see where we go from there. I think we're going to keep the deuce, obviously. We're going to keep putting money in the pot just because we hope that he's going to put us all in. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to draw 2 to our king 9. It's a little bit dangerous drawing the 2, but it gives us more of a chance. We actually kind of got worse in both cases. So again, we're going to draw 2 to our 65 by getting rid of the queen and the 10. 10-8 is not going to cut it in this case. So we're going to bust out in 11th position from this tournament. Wow, 12th place in the stud. That is actually really good. That is actually really good, buddy. Stud is a very streaky game. It's a lot of fun to play. I'm not very good at stud high. Stud high-low and Raz are my sort of my versions of stud that I really enjoy. Toblerone, good to see you around here. It's cool to have you around. Go ahead and click the follow button on the bottom right-hand side of the channel if you guys like what you've seen and you've heard tonight. I'm gonna have a look around on the lobby window and see if there's anything that we can play. Well, that looks like it's a interesting one. Alrighty, folks. I think we're gonna. Obviously, we're done with the 220 fixed limit triple draw, deuce to 7. But I think what we are going to do is jump into an 8 game. Alrighty, so this is a $2.20 8 game. We're playing. If you're unfamiliar with the 8 game is similar to horse, except there's 3 games added, and those 3 games are limit deuce to 7 triple draw, no limit hold'em, and pot limit Omaha, in addition to the regular horse games, which of course are limit hold'em, limit Omaha high low, Raz stud, and stud 8. The order goes, we start with the deuce to 7, we go into the horse rotation from there, so limit hold'em, limit Omaha high low, Raz stud, stud 8. We then go into no limit hold'em, followed by a pot limit Omaha before rolling things back into the deuce to 7. Limit hold'em is pretty much like any other kind of hold'em in this sense. You're going to probably raise your ace king most of the time. We're not really caring the fact that it's not suited. It's, you know, early days. We're going to raise our ace kings and see what we get. So it looks like we've come in where we've missed the deuce to 7 round, first deuce to 7 round, and we're in the first limit hold'em round. We've flopped our pair of aces. We're going to keep putting chips into the pot because pair of aces top kicker is a good hand. We're not really necessarily thinking that there's any reason to put him on a 3. Or hearts for that matter, but certainly could be the case. And I mean, I think we're gonna probably be calling his insta raise just because. Yeah, and he's got the hearts. I mean, of course he does, but I don't really think that you can get rid of the way that played out. I don't really think I can get rid of the ace king there. Gorilla E is a fellow Canadian who's just done that. It's kind of annoying when that happens, but there's not really much we could have done about that. There's not really a way to play that hand any differently to make our life better there, I don't think. Thanks, Lomax. I appreciate the good game. We've moved into the 8 game now, and we're having some fun with that. Gonna call through with my spades here. Obviously, we've missed the flop, and we're probably gonna get out of here because there's really no equity, nothing that we can even improve to. We would have maybe improved to a pair of jacks there, but I have a feeling that somebody's hit the queen. Hyperu being the likely person. Gonna fold the king 3 out, I think. No point in really playing that one. So I think this will be the last hand of limit hold'em. We should be going into limit 08 after this, I believe. Yeah, limit 08 with blinds at 30-60. We have no antes as of yet, so we don't have to worry about that for now. This is not really a hand that we're ever really going to play. You know, 76 with the low is pretty crappy. King 10 doesn't really give us much beyond broadways and lucky flops on the high, so it's not really a hand that we want to be bothering with as far as the Omaha 8 hand is concerned. So we probably got a couple of people looking at the low draw with the 84 and trying to draw out on a low. And I'm guessing we've probably got somebody who's hit the jack for the high as well. I think Maggie might have a jack 10 without a low draw and trying to collect the pot before we go. This is the sort of hand that you really, 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 really love to play in something like Omaha high-low. You love to play it enough that you're actually jumping in and raising the pot as often as possible. You've got oodles of straight possibilities coming in here. You've got the ace high, spade flush. You've got obviously a couple of ways to make the nut low depending on what low cards come out. When you get a flop like 3, 9, 10 all diamonds, however, it's not the best thing in the world for you. It's frustrating when you have a starting hand that's got some of the best possibilities that you can see, and the flop comes out and completely messes you. Yeah, and we've got no low possibilities anymore, so our lovely multiple ways to make a nut low has just become null and void. At least one of the differences between 08 and stud 8 is that with 08, either everyone can potentially make a low hand or no one can potentially make a low hand. Stud 8, obviously you're all playing your own board, so I might brick on my low draw and be unable to make a low hand, but buddy next to me can make an 87 without a problem. That's never going to happen in this format, or very rarely going to happen in this format when basically when the board shows that a low is possible, then everybody can potentially make a low. When the board shows that the low is not possible, when there's not 3 low cards out there to work with, then nobody can make a low, obviously. So you don't have to. You can discount it at that point. Alrighty, so we're on break. I'm going to run and make some tea and do my other custodial duties, as they say, and I'll be back in a few minutes. Alrighty, I'm back. I got some technical difficulties when I added another table to my mech's off screen. I'll try to sort that out slowly as we move on, but you can still see what's going on, I think, on my main screen. We've got a 9665 in our Limit Omaha high-low game, which is not a terrible hand to go with, but not a great hand, but I think it's one that we're going to throw some chips in the pot with and see where we go. So we got called in one spot at least. We're going to check through and see what comes up on the turn. Hopefully the stream is working a little bit better for you now, and you've got my little technical difficulties worked out. I don't think I need to call that there. Somebody who's playing limit high-low is a very good chance of having a deuce in their hand, so when the deuce pairs there, having three deuces and having my sixes killed is probably a pretty reasonable situation for the record, which is why I folded. In a limit Omaha high-low game, King, King, Queen, 7 pretty much has no value whatsoever, so you want to get rid of it. You got no chance of making a low hand with that. You do have a reasonably strong high hand with the King, King, but with no chance at making the low, you're basically starting off from the beginning saying, I'm only going to play for half the pot. How does that sound to the rest of the table? The rest of the table is probably going to go, that sounds really good to us, because you know what? The rest of us are actually playing for the whole pot. So if you're looking at an Omaha hand that you cannot make a low out of, you probably don't ever want to play it in a high-low context. There are situations where it makes some sense to call through when you're the last person to complete some action and see a flop and see what happens. The flop can obviously come in ways where it guarantees that there's no straight cards, or I mean guarantees that there's going to be no low hand. For example, when the flop comes King, Queen, Jack, it is impossible for anybody to have a low hand. So, you know, in that case, you know, when I'm the last person to complete and I'm not having to throw a ton of my stack in, and I'm just sort of completing a single bet, then yeah, I might do that, see the flop, see if I hit and there's no low, and then that sort of a hand is worth something. But generally speaking, if you can't make a low, you just want to get rid of your cards because they're not worth having around. We have now moved on to the Raz portion of the 8 game. As I said earlier, 8 game is basically horse plus 3 extra games. Those 3 extra games are deuce to 7 no limit triple draw, which is tacked on at the beginning of the horse rotation. You then have a standard horse rotation, which we are in the middle of now. And once we finish the stud 8 from the horse, instead of starting back at the beginning of the horse rotation again, we move on to a no limit hold'em and a pot limit Omaha round. Although I think actually that I got that backwards. I think we move on to a pot limit Omaha and then a no limit hold'em round. But don't quote me on either of those. We'll figure that out when we get there. I think my brain's just a little bit fuzzy right now, and I can't remember exactly which order this rotation is going to go in. I do, however, know that we are now playing Raz, and the next game will be a stud. Raz, stud, and stud 8, of course, are all stud variants, which are always played as limit games. They are probably the most different looking poker games from all the other ones, just because there's no community board, unlike Hold'em and Omaha. And unlike most of the draw games, you get a crap load of cards. You end up with 7 cards in front of you, and everybody gets their own 7 cards. So it's just a very unusual format, unusual looking format for most poker players coming from other kinds of games into the stud variants. It's very rare these days, in my experience, that you see stud dealt live outside of someplace like the World Series of Poker. It's worth mentioning, if you are coming to this from a deuce to 7 sort of experience, flushing cards you don't like, but in the stud version of low, which is called Raz, which is what we're playing now, it doesn't matter whether you have all the same suit or whether you've got straights. It's just the lowest 5 cards that you can get that win. So 5, 4, 3 deuce ace is always going to win the pot, no matter whether they're suited or not. And the fact that they're all run makes no difference to anybody. I'm drawn out pretty good as a Raz hand here. I'm absolutely ahead of Hyperoo at this point. I don't know for sure I'm ahead of Legend, but I got a pretty good chance of being ahead of Legend, and if I'm not ahead now, I've got good chances of drawing cards that put me ahead of Legend. So we're definitely gonna keep going with this. That deuce, obviously we can see that we've got a deuce back, and it's not the best card in the world for us. But Legend doesn't know that, and having just drawn a 9, he knows, or he thinks he's worse than the worst hand that we could possibly be showing here. Likewise with the paired 7 over here, that was, I mean, it wasn't necessarily throwing money in that pot, even though we know we're paired. They don't know we're paired, and we potentially have chances to fold people out. Now we're in a situation where we don't need to throw any money in, because there's really no reason that we need to believe that we're going to get somebody to fold out. The 7 was a nice draw for us, because it gives us an 87-421, which is going to be most likely better than anything else that's out there. We know Hyper could potentially be on a 74. Most likely he's on an 87 of some kind or another. 74 again, but 97 is most likely for Legend. So I think at this point our bet is probably a value bet, and it's probably good. And I'm probably getting called by a 97 over on the Legend Tiger side. Let's have a look at the hands that they mucked over there. For the record, this will be instructive for people if you don't know. On PokerStars, if you call a bet on the river, or on 7th Street in this case, and then try to muck your hand, your hand will show up in the hand history. Right, so Legend mucked, as I suspected. No, actually, Legend mucked a worse hand than I suspected. Legend mucked a 98. The Legend's down cards were 8-5, and the final card he was dealt was a king. Hyperu mucked an 98. The final card drawn was a 9, and up till that point he was on a king 8-7 for 3. So we were pretty much ahead from start to end in that hand, and pretty much knew it. Now we could have potentially kept betting on 4th, but of course, or on 6th, but of course we were pairing up and not basically needing to draw out to get a hand that was even going to play. So, you know, I think probably checking there was the way to go, and then making sure that we got as much money as we could in when the river came around, or the 7th Street came around, was all we could do. We got in the stud here. We've moved on to stud in the 8 game, and a pair of 5s with a queen, with just a bring in and the ability for me to complete the betting. I think that that's almost always going to go. We're going to bet our queens and 5s here. It gives us the option, of course, when there's a pair on the board, to double bet. I don't think we want to do that because we don't really want to scare people away from the pot. That would not be the point of the bet that we're making. The point of the bet that we're making is to actually be a value bet when we're sitting with 2 pair at this point. We've got a flush developing over here on the right. We do have a pair of 10s up with Gorilla E at the top. So yeah, things are developing here. Our 2 pair may not necessarily be the best hand, as we were fairly certain it was on 4th Street, but nonetheless, I don't think we're really so worried about this that we're stopping wanting to put money into the pot, because we want, when we win this pot at the end of the thing, we want there to be lots in there. Right, so we still only have queens and 5s. I think we're going to be check calling through on here pretty much all the time. Wow, 9's full of 10s. It's a good hand. It's a good hand that came through on 7th Street for him. Pair of 5s with an ace, we're definitely going to complete on here. Alrighty, so that's obviously a fortuitous card for us. Again, I think we're just going to throw about a 40 out there because we don't really want to scare anybody away. We've got a very strong, obviously we've got a much stronger hand now than we did before. We can't really credibly check here. Everybody's going to check behind us, obviously, so we want to throw a bet out. Although there is an argument there, I think, for probably checking, letting everybody check behind you to see if they pick up a better hand on the next street, and is therefore more willing to go against your obvious trips there. Again, we're at Queen Queen Ace. We're definitely playing around with this hand, I think, without too much question. We got our stud 8 coming up next, so we got to watch for that switch over so we know to start playing on our low end. We're definitely calling through with a queen queen ace here. Nobody else is really showing a super strength at this point. I don't really think that we need to keep throwing money in the pot, though. We've got diamonds developing over here with Legend Tiger. A couple of diamonds over here, plus we've got the buried queen, which they don't know about. So the chances of Legend actually being on a flush right now seem pretty slim. We've just picked up, we've just kind of backed into a flush, we've just backed into a flush draw there, which we didn't really expect to have when we started this hand, I don't think. We've bricked our flush draw, and we've ended up with just a pair of queens. Ace high, and we've been given the opportunity to check through to the to showdown, which is, I think, the way to go. Alright, Lomix, it's good to have you around. Click the follow button, and hopefully we'll see you back again. Hopefully we'll see you back again for whatever it is we're playing next time around. Alright, so we're into the stud high-low component of horse, which is, or of 8 game, which is the end of the horse rotation portion of the game. As with all high-low games, this is one of the ones where you sort of want to focus on your low, or at least the way that I play it is I want to focus on my low hand, let the high hand work itself out. And the reason you do that, of course, is because when you're focusing on the high hand, you can only, if you have a high hand and no low hand, the best you can hope for is half the pot. So you need to be sure that you always have a qualifying low hand when you're playing the high-low games. If you don't, you're giving up way too much value to the other players at the game who are playing for low on every single situation. This is an awesome looking high-low hand developing here. Obviously, we've got 2, 3, 4, 6, which is a wicked, both a wicked low and a potential for a straight to give us a very strong high at the same time. We've just hit a very strong, well, I wouldn't say a very strong, but a quite strong low for stud high-low. And we're going to definitely keep betting this. It was obviously a gut shot straight that we've got here, but it's still worth us betting on. We've just backed into a heart flush draw as well, which we had no reason to expect when we first started going into this hand. So, this is what I'm talking about when you play for low and let the high hands work itself out. I've got a gut shot straight draw. I've backed into a flush. I've backed into a flush draw, and I've got a low hand that's probably going to take half the pot for low. At this point, I don't really think I need to bet anymore on 7th. I'm pretty sure that I'm only taking low. Now, I could actually bet and see if I can bet people off of the pot. I'm pretty sure that I'm taking low. And yeah, we're gonna split. We're gonna split these on. By betting there, I actually got a little bit of extra chips in the pot. The reasons to bet there is to potentially get somebody with just a high to fold if it's not a very strong high. The downside to betting there is that you could be capped on your low. Somebody having hit, you know, an ace, deuce, 3, 4, 5 or something along those lines, so they've got both a straight for high and a better low than you have, and you end up losing the bet that you put in. But there's really not a lot of downside to throwing that bet in when you're three-handed like that, because more often than not, one of your two opponents is going to be tossing in a bet that gets split between the two of you that split the pot. So that just means more money in the pot for you, and you may as well make use of it by tossing that bet in when you have the chance. And very often good things happen, and people fold, and you take the entire pot when you really have no business taking the entire pot because you're sure somebody else had you beat for high. So throwing that bet in can make very good things happen. So let's have a quick glance at the lobby of this that we're playing. It is a $2.20 8 game. It's not a satellite for anything or any sort of micro billions or anything like that. It's just a standard tournament, just an 8 game for $2.20. There are 26 people have entered. Late registration is now closed, so it's 26 total entries for a total prize pool of $52. They're paying out top four finishers are getting paid out, with the min cash in fourth getting $5.20, and first place getting a $23.40. We're on 6-minute levels, running through the various games. We're on 6-minute levels. We've now jumped into No Limit HoldEm over on this set, so we'll play another 4 or so minutes of No Limit HoldEm, then move into Pot Limit Omaha, and then roll back to the Deuce 7 Triple Draw. One of the things I love about playing mixed games like the horse or the 8 game is the fact that you constantly have to keep shifting gears as the games change, to changing your strategy, to change the way you think about hands, to change the way you think about the way the game is played. And I find that really helps me keep my focus on the game and my mind in the game. Maybe I'm atypical or not, but I mean, I think that we've all had periods where the sort of monotony of playing Hold'em hand after Hold'em hand after Hold'em hand kind of gets to you, and you sort of wake up and realize that you've been sitting at this table for 20 or 25 minutes or something, and you have no recollection of any action that you've taken for the past few minutes. And one of the cool things about the mixed games is that it sort of forces you to never get into that situation where you're just into an automatic rut of decision making, because there are no automatic decisions anymore. All of a sudden you look up, and instead of having 2 cards dealt to you, you've got 4 cards dealt to you, and then instead of having 4 cards dealt to you, suddenly they're giving you 5 and asking you to discard some, and it's like, what the fuck? All of a sudden I gotta start thinking about this. So it really keeps, at least I find for myself, it keeps me in the game, it keeps me thinking about, keeps my brain active, and keeps me forces me to keep in the game. So that's one of the reasons I love to play the mixed games, the horse and the 8 game, so much. I'd love to see something like a dealer's choice or a 10/12 type game running on Stars as well, because I'd love to see some of the Badusis and Badasis and things like that running. But Stars doesn't run any Badusi or Badasi for some reason, which I'm not entirely sure why that is, but no, they don't run the Badusi or the Badasi stuff. If you like what you're seeing here, everybody, click the follow link down below at the bottom right of the stream here. I don't really have a schedule per se. I'm going to try to do stuff a few times a week for sure. There's a few things that seem to be developing schedule-wise, such as the Sunday Raz deal that I started this week. That sounds like it's kind of fun. That's sort of named after the British tradition of Sunday roast. And we'll play a couple of Raz tournaments on Sunday nights, maybe with that. And so I don't know what other traditions might develop. There's probably going to be games that we find that we like on specific days that we want to start playing. But for the time being, I'm basically, when I feel like streaming, I'm going to find a game that isn't HoldEm that looks promising and sign up for it and fire the stream up and start streaming. Is basically the way it's going to work. You guys will get notices if you follow. You'll get notices in your email, and you'll get notices in on Twitter. If you follow me on Twitter, you can find my Twitter information on the right hand side of my profile. Down at the bottom of that panel, you'll see contact information for Twitter. I should put my G+ in there as well. But find lots of ways to contact and follow me, and you will get notifications when I go online in the Twitterverse, if that's your preference of communication mediums. I'm still fairly new at this whole streaming thing. I've only been doing it for a few days now. I'm still kind of learning my way around my broadcast software. But I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I think it's going to be something that we're gonna that I can have some fun with. I am sitting 18th of 24 right now in this 8-game tournament. We've just moved from our No Limit HoldEm phase into our Pot Limit Omaha phase. Pot Limit Omaha being not one of the games that I'm most adept at, I don't think. It's probably the one I'm going to be the most cautious in, simply because it's probably the one that I can most easily get myself into a ugly situation with bad decision making. Obviously, No Limit HoldEm is a game where you can get yourself into ugly situations pretty easy as well. But I'm a fair bit more confident with my decision-making ability in No Limit HoldEm. And my sort of internal Pot Limit Omaha equity calculator is just a little skewed, I think, and doesn't quite come to the right to as close of the right conclusions as my No Limit HoldEm one does. So. Now, it's important to remember in this Pot Limit Omaha phase of 8-game that it's not a high-low game. One of the things that I've had issues with in the past is seeing the 4 cards, realizing that we've gone into an Omaha phase, and suddenly starting to play Omaha 8 again, because Omaha 8 is the normal part of Raz or of horse, and I play so much horse that it's just sort of something that my brain has done in the past. So it's important to remember, because Pot Limit Omaha is obviously, you're going to play quite different hands from what you would play for Pot Limit Omaha 8, with significant differences with certain hands that you would just never play in 08 that you're going to play all the time in PLO, and vice versa. So I kind of said this as a semi-joke when I was streaming a horse tournament the other day. Um, and it is a joke, of course, because it's an obvious, simple thing, but it's remarkably easy to lose track of it from time to time. And that piece of advice when you're playing the mixed games is every single hand before you press any button to act on the cards that you've been given, look up here in the table name field and look at what game you're playing, because that's obviously a very important aspect of how you're going to play the cards that you see when you get them. And especially in the cases of the Omaha variants, where you go from PLO to PLO 8 in different stages of the rotation. And absolutely especially in the 3 stud phases, where you go from Raz to stud 8 in successive order. It is super easy to be playing a wicked Raz hand, 6-4-3 deuce 1, and get to 7th Street and suddenly realize that the reason that the dude that's showing the 2 kings and the 2 queens on his up cards has been raising you all the way through like an idiot is because you're the one that's the idiot, and it's been switched over to Raz in the or to stud in the last hand, and your Raz hand's no good. I've certainly done that on more than one occasion, and so I've learned the habit of simply, before I act at all on any of my cards in the mixed game, the first thing I do is look for what game I'm playing. And it's remarkable every single time that, and I'm still doing that now, where that's the first thing I do. And yes, I'll look at the pot limit Omaha words 8 or 10 times in this particular section, and when it flips over, I'll do the same thing when it says deuce to 7, no limit, triple draw. "21 people left in this tournament now. 26 people started the evening, so we've lost 5 people. I'm sitting 17th at the moment. Not terribly worried about my chip stack presently. We're getting to a point where the bets and blinds are starting to make a bit of a difference, but I'm still not hugely concerned. I'm fairly happy to sit back and look for hands as they come. Alright, so we moved into the limit triple draw deuce to 7 phase of the tournament. This is probably the way I get my most deuce to 7 time in, is during the 8-game rotation. I rarely will buy into a deuce to 7 tournament on my own. Did earlier so that we could have some deuce to 7 on here, but it's not something that I would normally do. Alrighty, so we're actually drawing into a reasonably good hand here, drawing to an 84. We're going to check through. We don't need to really be throwing a ton of chips into the pot. It's going to be a check call, I think, obviously, but obviously pairing the 3s not the best case scenario for us. But equally, I think we're check calling all the time. I think we have to, and then draw to our 3 again. Jack 8, we've pretty much got no choice but to check fold when we've drawn the Jack 8. I think we're going to complete to 60 and draw 2 to the nuts is basically the way to look at this. Now drawing 1 to a 76, which is not a bad place to be. To a nut 76 for that matter. We'll check it through just because our stack is starting to get a little smaller. We don't necessarily need to get into big betting wars here. I don't necessarily think that this table has a propensity for doing that, but it never hurts to be cautious. And I think at this point everybody's drawing 1. You can certainly throw a 120 bet out here. If you wanted to, just see if you can pull the pot in yourself at this point. I don't think it's going to work very often. It's entirely possible that's what Legend has done here. I'm going to call through and obviously draw my 6. But I'm not hugely confident about this hand unless I hit a 4 or a 5 here. Hitting the 4 is pretty much the gin card for us. This is our best case scenario. These are the cards we were looking for, to paraphrase a Star Wars comment. We're gonna throw chips into this pot because we have a very, very, very strong hand, and we want people to throw chips into the pot to see the strong hand that we have. Hyper really wants to call us. Like Hyper really wants to call us. Like really badly, Hyper wants to call us. I'm thinking that you're probably looking at some sort of a 9 or 8 with Hyper. I can't believe that they folded a 7, and I can't believe that they tanked that long over anything 10 or higher. So some sort of a 9 or 8, I think, is really the only way that pays, or that situation makes any sense at that point. Hey Burko, how you doing? Favorite game? I think my favorite game is probably Badoogie. Just because it's so different from all of the rest of the poker variants. I mean, you know, all the other variants, yes, they're different. Their rules are different. The way that the cards are dealt are different. Everything else, but you're still making pairs and sets and 2 pairs and straights and flushes and things like that. And it's essentially the same game at the end of the day. It's just ordered and organized slightly differently. The thing I love about Badoogie is it's fundamentally different from all of that. You know, you're thinking about the cards in different ways. You're thinking about the suits in different ways. You're thinking about the ranks in different ways. It's just a way of completely flipping your brain over into a completely different mode of thinking about the game of poker, I think. And I find it to be a really nice way to cleanse my palate. Cleanse my mental palate, so to speak, when I get burned out on HoldEm or something like that, to just jump into a Badoogie and you know, it just kind of spritzer for your brain almost. It just refreshes everything I find for my brain. That said, I don't necessarily think I'm that good at Badoogie. I think it's one of my better games, but I certainly wouldn't say it's my best game. There was a time not too long ago that I would have answered that question fairly quickly with Raz, and I would have said that Raz was my best game. But these days, I'm pretty sure that it's stud high low as opposed to Raz. And as a corollary to that, I think it's possible that either triple stud or horse might be worth mentioning as one of my best games as well, as a mixed game variant. Because of the fact that I feel pretty strongly about my stud high low and my Raz ability, triple stud is something that I feel pretty strongly that I'm pretty strong in. I don't really think my stud game is great. I don't think it's horrible, but I don't think it's great either. But I do think I tend to have an edge in the other two aspects of triple stud, which is definitely an advantage, I think. So I think that should answer your questions. Favorite game is Badoogie for the reasons I talked about, and the game that I think I'm actually best at this point is for single game is going to be stud high low, I'm pretty sure, and if we're including mixed games in the mix, then I think probably triple stud with horse are very, very close behind. Right, so over here we are in limit. We are in limit hold'em, and we've just turned top pair with the nut flush draw that we flopped, and so I think we're pretty happy with that. We've now got trip aces. I think we're pretty happy in this situation that we have got the best hand. We are going to put chips in the middle and hope that Hyperu matches or raises that we put in the middle. He did not. He said, "I do not want to keep playing this hand. Please take the chips that are in the middle and put them in your stack." So that's what I did. I took the chips that were in the middle and put them in my stack. 8-6 suited is a hand that we almost certainly want to see for a 5-to-1 pot odd situation. And I think we're going to do the same thing here for 5-to-1. So we flopped a gut shot straight, but of course we also flopped the wrong color of flush draw. So I think we're probably just going to get the hell out of dodge in this case, because the gut shot straight draw isn't any good. And yeah, I think there's no point in even hanging around and yakking about it. We're on the button. If this folds to us, we're probably going to open raise with our 10-7. These sorts of moves, for the record, in position are going to work less often in a limit game than they will in the no limit hold'em. And so they should be, your button raising like that should probably be used more sparingly than it would be in a no limit or a pot limit hold'em game. But you still want to obviously play your position, and playing your position means that you're going to raise when you're in position and try to take pots away. So that's the way that you're going to go, and basically be as aggressive, more aggressive when you're in position than you are when you're out of position. So I think you're gonna want to button raise fairly frequently in the limit hold'em game. Your button raise frequency is probably not going to be quite as high as you'd expect it to be in a no limit game, but it's still going to be high. So there's a 3-minute delay, of course, on the stream. I don't think it's a huge issue with sniping or anything like that, but I just think that when I'm showing my hole cards, I really want to be at least a few minutes back. I never want anybody to be looking at the hole cards in a hand that I'm actually playing right now. But if you're looking at a hole cards of the hand that I played 3 minutes ago, I'm not that chuffed about it, really. You know, it's especially in a format like this where the point is to kind of help people learn and help myself learn and things like that. So I mean, I'm not really that concerned about anything. I'm not playing any super high stakes stuff. Well, glad to hear that, Burko. I definitely think that the Raz and the Stud 8s and the Studs are the ones that I really love, and I think it's just because they're so much different from the other games as well. I agree with you that my Omaha skills are pretty poor for the most part, and that's the place that I probably need the most work. And the draw games are ones that I'm just pretty crappy at for the most part. Other than the Badugi. Badugi's the one draw game that I'm pretty comfortable with. But yeah, the draw games in Omaha are the ones that really I need to improve on. Happy for the follow. I'm hoping that the next thing that I manage to pick up tomorrow is probably going to be a Badugi tournament. I haven't had a chance to stream Badugi. I keep threatening that I want to do some Badugi on here, and I haven't had a chance yet, so I think tomorrow I'm going to make a concerted effort to find some Badugi to play and show here. I played a Badugi the other night that I was going to do on replay today, and then I couldn't find it, and I couldn't